Hello and welcome to another fully live Q&A episode of Hacking with Friends. My name is Kody Kinzie. I am a security researcher at Varonis, and today we have our recurring co-host Angelina Tsuboi on to talk a little bit about aerospace hacking and also some cool Meow Mixer workshops that we've been working on. Angelina, thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me here, Kody. It's a pleasure to be on again.
So we both unintentionally scheduled Meow Mixer workshops over the weekend, which was really cool. I got to tell the group that I was working with in Missoula that they were part of kind of like a larger class. Do you want to tell people a little bit about what this cool design is that you made and what we've done with it since it's been created? Oh, and also I have a little peek of the white version that came out. That's really cute.
Yeah, so the Meow Mixer is an educational PCB, a printed circuit board. Essentially, it's supposed to teach you the basics of electronics and circuitry in a really intuitive and um, fun way. Essentially, you can just rotate the three little blue knobs on each side of the face on the cat, and it changes the colors of the eyes. So it's a really simple printed circuit board for beginners. It's really easy to put together, and it looks really cute.
Yeah, so over the weekend, we each did a class. I did it at a makerspace, and that was like a free event open to the community. I know that you did it as a hacker space, in part to help raise a little bit of money for, was it Crash Space?
Yes, it was in collaboration with Crashbase. Yeah.
Yeah, so our classes, even though they were using the same hardware, were also a little bit different. So I chose to focus on breadboarding, and I had people kind of put together the circuit for one of these eyes and one of the knobs, and then learn how to kind of breadboard it together, understand the circuit, and then when they put everything into the printed circuit board, kind of have a better understanding of the way the circuit actually worked. Angelina, what did you do differently?
Yeah, so instead of focusing more on like the breadboarding version, like you did, Kody, I taught the people who attended the class a little bit about KiCad and PCB development. So KiCad is a really um, is an open source and free software tool to develop your own printed circuit boards. So I just went over with the crew how they can develop their own printed circuit board using that software.
Yeah, and I have a couple pictures from my event in Missoula, just kind of showing off how things went. Missoula has a beautiful makerspace, and these are all in our Discord server if you want to check it out. But we got to see everybody getting down and soldering, cutting pins. This guy frightened me. He actually touched the metal of his soldering iron to test whether it was hot or not. Fortunately, it was not. I could tell because he didn't scream. But we were getting creative using tape to hold things down, and otherwise trying not to burn ourselves with our new soldering irons. But the library managed to get some really great soldering irons for about 40 bucks. So maybe afterwards I'll post in the comments these great soldering irons we ended up getting. They're like a pine, like Pine 5, like a soldering iron that's apparently like an open source, like highly moddable soldering iron that everybody seemed to really enjoy. So this class was super fun. Everybody had their circuits work when we tested them, and everybody's PCB actually turned on and was ready to go when we were done, which was great because we really didn't allocate that much time for getting out of the library. So as soon as everybody was done, we pretty much had to scram because the library was closing. But yeah, that was a lot of fun. So we've been invited back to do that again. I'm really looking forward to it. And did I have any other? Oh yeah, a big shout out to some people on our team. So Ariza actually taught the whole soldering section of the workshop herself. You've probably either seen her at DEF CON or on some of the videos that Varonis has put out around threat research. And do you see this little sneaky Varonis over here? That's Michael. You guys remember Michael? Michael was at this workshop and he helped out a lot. So a big shout out to him, not only for helping out with the workshop, but also for bringing like half of the audience was like people that Michael knew. So that was really cool. So if you have been wondering what Michael has been up to, well, now you know. All sorts of interesting stuff. And also, hello to everybody in the chat. I see you all. Hello, James. Hello, Adam. Hello, Giuliano. Everybody is welcome to post questions on this one. We have a lot that we can talk about, but also we're here to answer your hacker Q&A questions. So go ahead and fire your questions in the chat. If you want. What are we going to do today? Well, one thing we're going to do is we're going to talk about something that I got to do at BlackHat, and we're also going to talk about some of the classes that Angelina has done and has coming up around aerospace cybersecurity. So I have a couple of other things. Oh yeah, sorry, some other pictures from the class. Look at how lovely that is, and how she matched the Meow Mixer's eyes to her shirt so perfectly. I love it. Missoula has
She looks super happy.
I know. Everybody was so thrilled. And frankly, it's such a lovely makerspace and they have such nice things that being able to bring one of these workshops to them was really cool. Also got to leave a symbolic nugget above the city of Missoula, which was very cool. And with this new revision of the white nugget, this is actually cleaner and lighter and kind of easier to read than some of the previous versions we've done. I'm actually really happy with the way that it came out. Michael called it a stormtrooper nugget. And I wasn't sure that I agreed with that. But now that I actually see it, I think everybody was pretty happy with it. And the instructions were even easier to read than on some of the blue or other colored ones that we've had before. So yeah, that was my week. I also got to do some writing up of Wi-Fi vulnerabilities. So I just wanted to go over this really quickly. One of my favorite author of research papers is Matthew Van Hoff, and he wrote a really interesting paper about framing frames, which is basically using beacon frames to do some interesting Wi-Fi hacking. So I did a quick write-up of some of the really interesting ways he talks about in the paper of ruining people's Wi-Fi connections. And I wanted to go through them really quickly and talk about some of these new attacks against beacon frames. So Angelina, do you know what beacon frames are for Wi-Fi networks?
Um, from what
Whoa.
I've heard, beacon frames. Yeah, there's someone drilling the side of my apartment. um, anyways, yeah, so beacon frames are packets sent out that are related to Wi-Fi networks. I forgot. It's it's either like some kind of identification packet, so you're telling different devices what Wi-Fi network you're using, or it could be something different.
Yeah, so I like to describe these as kind of like a billboard for a Wi-Fi network. They have all the information necessary for you to join the Wi-Fi network, like the type of security it supports, the channel it's on, like the network name, like all that stuff is included in the beacon frame. Now, there's also some other configuration files or these other configuration markers that allow you to set specific values and packets that say all sorts of interesting things. And some of these have unintended effects if you start messing with them. So I'm going to go through a couple of these kind of optional parts of beacon frames that you can start to abuse in order to do some of these attacks. So one of them is reducing the throughput of clients. That means you're spoofing beacon frames to tell target devices to lower their transmission power to the lowest possible setting. And that makes it really hard for them to be able to be heard because they are able to speak, but they're not really being heard that far. So anything at the extreme end of their range is probably not going to be able to hear them anymore. This is pretty successful. It's so far in the tests that I saw mentioned in the research paper, MacBook Pros, iPhones, iPads, and Windows devices using Alpha and TP-Link dongles were all affected by this attack. And it's literally just changing the power setting in the advertised network to be super, super low and forcing devices nearby to lower their transmission power in response. So another one is kind of the opposite, battery depletion. What if instead of turning the power down so that they can't be heard, we turn the power up? So if it's a battery device, we can wear through its battery and make it keep its Wi-Fi radio on all the time. So basically what we would do here is we trick the target device into transmitting unnecessary frames, leading to a battery drainage. Well, how do we do that? We basically trick the targeted device here into thinking it has a bunch of messages waiting for it. So it'll wake up out of sleep mode, call the access point asking for messages, but there won't be any there. So as a result, it's always waking up and transmitting, and we can do that over and over and over, and basically bully one of these devices into depleting its whole battery by unnecessarily using its Wi-Fi radio all the time. Another one is preventing frame delivery. So that means we can make it so certain frames that are trying to be delivered by the access point aren't able to be delivered by messing with timestamp values and causing things to be invalid when they arrive. So this is almost like a kind of like a deauthentication attack in that it is tampering with parts of the packet that cause legitimate transmissions to no longer be valid. And then also there is these silencing stations. And this actually reminded me a little bit of you, Angelina. There is something built into the 5 gigahertz Wi-Fi standard that is listening for radar. So apparently there is some weather radar that operates in the 5 gigahertz like frequency range, and there is a protocol built within Wi-Fi where if it receives like a quiet element, it basically is told to temporarily pause transmissions because there's 5 gigahertz radar operating in the area, which is really weird. Apparently, this is not super effective anymore, but it is effective against like some types of devices. The other one is 802.11 power elements. This is part of a standard that basically, again, talks about the maximum transmit power and allows you to spoof those elements and turn them down basically all the way. So those are the most interesting kind of like nuggets from that research paper and how beacon frames can be used to start making it really difficult to use a Wi-Fi network. I thought a lot of those were cool. And if you want to delve into more of the details there, you can check out Matthew's paper, which is published on his website. All right. So that is most. Oh, and then Angelina, do you know what a USB Type-C cable is?
Yes, it's like the thin USB variant that's used with a lot of Apple devices. Also, it's like a more modern version of the predecessor of the USB too.
Right. It's like reversible. Like that's its like claim to fame. You can't plug it in the wrong way. They finally did away with that. So yeah, this cable has been around for 10 years next year, which is, it's been around for a while. So when I saw today that the AP has a front page news article on what is USB-C, the charging socket that replaced Apple's Lightning cable. I assume that everybody at some point would have had like a USB Type-C device. Like this is no longer new technology; it's like a decade almost old. So I was kind of surprised to see this, but it is like big news that Apple is going to be moving over to USB Type-C. However, I already own an iPad that uses USB Type-C. So again, this was a very confusing headline for me. But yeah, I agree that maybe we should all use the same standard for that, just because USB Type-C is fine and I like it. But yeah, we'll see what happens with this, with the outcome from this. I was like, who hasn't encountered USB Type-C at this point? Like, it just was surprising to me.
Yeah.
All right, so that is a lot of what I had to show today, except for this really cool thing that I got to do at BlackHat. So when we were at BlackHat, I got to, and by we, I mean the Veronis, we all got to see a lot of really cool and interesting people who came by. And some of these were CEOs, some of these were like pen testers, and it was kind of everybody in between as well. So some of those people came over and played our Veronis CTF. And that was a really cool like Salesforce CTF that allowed people to see all the juicy information you could pull out of a misconfigured Salesforce community. So while people were doing that, I got to do a little quiz where I was authorized to give out gift cards if people got questions right. And I set up some things that I thought could possibly stump cybersecurity experts, both on the executive level all the way down to the pen testing level. And I think that they did a pretty good job. Well, I also think I did a pretty good job because I got some that stumped people, like including this was my favorite one from the entire thing. What does CVE stand for? I thought I knew, but we're going to go ahead and premiere this here. So this is for the very first time our security forward security quiz, where we gave out prizes to people who stopped by the Ronis booth at DEF CON. And maybe turn it down just a tiny bit because it's just a little bit loud. Here we go.
Okay, so we're gonna ask you how about four questions, and you only need to get one correct in order to win, but if you get one, then just keep on going. What's the main purpose of the tool called binwalk?
Sorry, I don't think I used that one.
Oh, binwalk, it's for binary. No, it's for you print out the memory, right?
Yeah, it's when it's blaring a bin file.
Okay, yeah, memory.
What type of DNS record is used to specify a mail exchange server for a domain?
I don't know the DNS record would be, sorry.
Well, I mean, it's going to be an MX record.
That's it.
Oh, that would be the MX record.
That's correct. All right, so you already got a gift card. Yeah. What does CVE stand for?
Um,
Uh,
Common vulnerability exploit.
critical vulnerability. Okay, enumeration.
verified vulnerability. Something.
Something vulnerability something.
Common vulnerabilities and exposures.
Oh, and
Which, by the way, I got wrong too. What is the new standard that is going to replace WPA2?
So we have WPA3. WPA3.
Here you go.
WPA3.
That's kind of, yeah, exactly. WPA3.
Okay, maybe it was cheating a little bit with that WPA3 question. That one was a tiny bit obvious, but the rest of them were pretty challenging. So that was cool to have everybody there giving their best answers and for the most part, getting it right. So I feel a lot more confident in the future of cybersecurity as the pen testers were getting everything they needed to get right, like the bin walk and everything. And then the business executives, you know, they were aware of the high level things like the MX records and all the other stuff necessary to run the larger, higher functions of a business. So yeah, that was super fun. I think we're going to keep doing it. It was a fun way to give out some gift cards. And if you want to win some gift cards at the next conference, I think probably RSA or BlackHat, go ahead and come on by, try out the CTF, and you can play our quiz game and see if you get some of those questions right. All right, so uh, yeah, James says he would have won something even without the give me question. Yeah, no, we had I thought I did a pretty good job of coming up with some like head scratchers, and I really got some people, especially who got a little overconfident and thought they knew the answer, and then ended up like being like, wait, never mind, maybe I don't know it as well as I thought. Um, all right, so here's a question about radio antennas. Angelina, I'm going to refer it to you because I have absolutely no idea. Can you create
Yeah.
a 9 dBi, 2.4 gigahertz, or 5 gigahertz wireless antenna?
Oh my goodness, that's a very specific question.
I know, right?
I'm not sure. I have experience just like tuning radios, but not really making my own. That is a project I do have in mind, but it won't be a Wi-Fi specific antenna. But I have heard of people like who make their own printed circuit boards and tune it to like either the 2.4 gigahertz or 5 gigahertz frequency. So I think that is possible.
So I have a question in the chat about what a record is. Well, that is a really big battery. No, I'm kidding. I think that's I hope that is the IPv6 DNS record for a domain that's pulled up when a DNS query is returned, but I have not worked on that for a while, so I could very well be wrong there. So you should do a contest here and give away those German sodas with caffeine. So you are talking about, yes, a soda that is very expensive here in the United States and hard to find. Clubmate is something that I've since become very enamored with after encountering it at the C3 conference in Germany. I understand it's very popular there. It is very hard to find here. In Montana, I can't find it at all. So I usually buy like a couple $100 worth of it when I am in Los Angeles and enjoy what I can. But yes, that is something that I wish I could give out if I could source it myself. So Angelina, you did 2 classes recently. One of them was in person and the other one was online. Do you want to talk a little bit about the contents of your classes and what you have been teaching in the aerospace cybersecurity realm?
Yeah, so I did 2 workshops that are pretty recent. One was an online satellite hacking workshop, and one was the in-person drone hacking workshop. So I can show you guys a recent demo I did for the drone hacking workshop. I think I showed the Telnet example in the last live stream I did with you, Kody, but I can show people the Wireshark lab I did during the in-person workshop. So one of the labs that the people in the class had to do was analyze a communication interception that happened between a drone operating device, so like a DJI mobile device that's running the app, and a DJI drone. And what they did was I just gave them a PCAP file, which is like a a network log of all the communication that happened between the drone, and I put in a bunch of other random packets in there, so I had to sift through everything. And they used the AR drone filter to filter through the packets, and they were investigating the Parrot 2, which is a really well-known drone because it's really easy to hack into. It's a great beginner drone if you're just getting into drone hacking. And Wireshark really conveniently has the display filter for the drone. So what they did is they just sifted through all the packets, they used a display filter, and they could see information about the orientation of the drone and commands that were being sent to the drone. So in this example, there's two command types. There's PCMD, and there's also REF. The REF command type just shows commands like takeoff, emergency stops, and landing, while the PCMD command suggests a command that's being sent from the operator to change the orientation of the drone. So in the class, people were dissecting the packets to see what commands were being sent to the drone. So it was a really great way to introduce them not only on a communication analysis between a drone and a controller, but also a nice leeway into Wireshark as well.
Did anybody have any trouble spinning up Wireshark or diving into it, or was it relatively smooth sailing?
Yeah, it was really smooth sailing. Yeah. Yeah, there was one workshop, there was one lab in the beginning where the demo um, was a little bit shaky because I used Python, and whenever you're doing a live in-person workshop where there's people with multiple different operating systems, different versions of Python, it kind of screws some things up. But yeah, for this one, since everybody was using Wireshark and most people just downloaded it on the spot, we had no problems.
That's great. That's great. So I think you're going to be doing an online version of this workshop, actually relatively soon, right?
Yes. Yeah, so pretty much we'll be covering the same material that I did for the in-person workshop. Yeah, so we'll be going over communication analysis. We'll be doing a forced shutdown scenario using Telnet and a digital forensics lab as well.
Can you go a little bit over the forced shutdown with Telnet? Because that's a pretty funny scenario. Just paint the picture of how this would
Yes.
happen.
Yeah, so I go over that in the first lab. I shouldn't be revealing all these slides. Let me go to that. Yeah, so we will be analyzing the Parrot AR2 drone again, but in this case, it's a more sophisticated example. You're not just using Wireshark, but a whole variety of tools. And we'll be going over Nmap, using FTP, Telnet, and FFplay. And the way we ran the CTF was you scan for a vulnerable port in the Parrot drone, and usually it has 3 open ports: FTP, Telnet, and a video port. And you would just inspect all those ports. And usually when you connect to the IP address of the drone, you get access via Telnet. You can get root access to the drone and cause a forced shutdown just by typing shutdown now. So it's really simple to hack into.
I love that, especially because everybody's pretty familiar with Telnet. So to find Telnet on a drone and especially
Yeah.
have logging into it, do something as significant as shut down the drone is pretty funny.
Yeah, it's very simple. I feel like when a lot of people think of drone hacking, they over sophisticate it in their heads, but a lot of the knowledge you learn about hacking IoT devices can be translated to hacking drones.
Awesome. So if people want to learn more, there is an online class. In fact, the class that we did at Null Space Labs was so popular that we decided it was necessary to do a second online version just so we could expand the number of seats and not be cramped. So I'm going to go ahead and drop the link to the ticket in the class, which is something people can check out no matter where they are. So if you're interested in drone hacking, this class is going to be something that you can check out from anywhere. Angelina is going to be hosting it herself. And I believe you're also going to be doing another class on airplane hacking. You want to explain what that's going to be about?
Yeah, so as a pilot, I have a natural affinity for all things plane related. And I thought, hey, since I'm doing an aerospace cybersecurity series, why not dive into aviation security as well? Kody and I discussed earlier that this might be slightly more contentious than previous workshops we've done in the past, like the drone and the satellite hacking one, because of events in the past that have happened, like 9/11 and um, other aviation related tragedies. We do have to be more um, forthright about the material we put in the class. So we'll be focusing more on the defensive aspect of aviation cybersecurity, and everything we do is going to be within a very defined and simulated environment with a very high focus on the defensive approaches to common aviation vulnerabilities.
Yeah, and that is excellent because everybody is a little bit edgy about anything that has people on it. You know, drones, satellites, like nobody lives on those things for the most part. So having aircraft involved, which is shuttling people around, is definitely going to provoke a different kind of tone when it comes to what people want to hear. We talked a little bit about the really common types of attacks against aircrafts before, and one of those was ADSB spoofing. And that's the one where, we talked a little bit and decided that maybe being able to teach people how to detect ADSB spoofing or what ADSB spoofing looks like might be better than teaching them to, do ADSB spoofing. That kind of thing,
Right.
I think, is going to be really interesting. So do you want to talk a little bit about what ADSB spoofing is and how students might learn a little bit about it in the class?
Yeah, so ADSB stands for Automatic Dependent Surveillance Broadcast, and it's essentially a radar system for planes in the sky, and it allows you to see lots of information about aircraft, such as its altitude and other relevant telemetry, such as its orientation, where it's located, etc. However, it's unencrypted, so it's really easy for a ground-based hacker to find the specific frequency, which is 1090 megahertz, and create what's called a ghost aircraft, where you can pretty much spawn a fake aircraft that doesn't exist into the radar system that lots of other people, like pilots like me, like I I always have a device up, like for whenever I'm flying a plane, that shows a ADS-B stream of planes in the sky, and also other ground-based facilitators of aircraft, such as air traffic control. They all use ADS-B to keep track of planes. A hacker could easily transmit data of a ghost airplane, so create an airplane that looks like a ghost aircraft, that looks like a real aircraft, but doesn't really exist, and wreak havoc onto an airspace. If this were to happen in, let's say, like a really busy airspace like LAX or JFK, this could cause a lot of chaos. And in the workshop, I plan to go over the what the vulnerability is and how we could better detect for planes that doesn't really exist, because there's not a really standardized detection mechanism for spoofed aircraft yet.
So what kinds of details would be indicative of a spoofed aircraft? Like what kinds of things could you immediately just throw out the window because you know that no legitimate aircraft would make signals like that?
Yeah, so there's, I feel like, two categories of spoofed aircraft. One is prank aircraft, where it's just so obvious that it's fake. Usually it has like airplanes have an identifier name to it. So if it's like a stupid identifier name, then it's really easy to pinpoint. Also, you could map out takeoffs and landings and GPS coordinates as well. So, like, pinpoint which aircraft, airspace, and um, airport it flew out of, and keep track of its altitude and its speed over time. So, um, but you can look at like the climb rate and the altitude and make sure they match up, and look at like the descent rate and the time it took to land. So making sure all the telemetry of the plane and the data that's extracted from the plane is consistent. So that's a very obvious way. For more covert aircraft that are meant to cause real damage, then you can use more stealthy techniques such as our fingerprinting, where you analyze the radio frequencies that are being transmitted by the perceived like ADSB transponder on the plane, and map it out and check for fluctuations within the radio frequencies.
Cool. So a lot of different ways you could potentially spot something suspicious, even if someone is doing a relatively good job of spoofing these and trying to create fictitious aircraft flying around. So that's a lot to go over. What else are you going to, well, are you expecting to be covering in this class? And it's going to be live at Null Space Labs, or is this going to be another online class?
Yeah, so I want to test it out in person first before I go online with it. Obviously, because when we do an online class, we typically have a larger audience. So I want to test it out with a smaller audience first. That's in person. But the week afterwards, I'll probably be doing an online version. And like pretty much all my aerospace hacking classes, we're going to be doing 3 labs that cover different attack surfaces of airplanes. One I just mentioned, which is the ADSB spoofing analysis. And we'll also be doing a entertainment system hacking lab as well, where we'll be looking at typical computers that are used behind in-flight entertainment systems. So this is like the screens you have at the front of your chair when you're on a flight, and what sorts of like pranks and attacks you can run on them. And then we'll also be looking for vulnerabilities within the cockpit. So like what instruments in a plane that a pilot uses that transmits information that could be intercepted by a hacker.
So James has a good question. Are there any instances that you know of fake air traffic being created?
I've heard of a few instances in the past. I'm not sure which airspace or airport it was, but I'm pretty sure it was near New York, where a hacker did try to spawn like a, I think they're trying to mimic a Boeing or some commercial aircraft. I'm pretty sure there's more instances out there, but it hasn't been covered that much by news sources.
Interesting. Yeah, I haven't heard personally of any specific instances. Just how easy it is kind of lends one to think that eventually
Right.
someone's going to try to do it.
Right.
So according to Bing AI, which I asked really quickly, there was a report by Aviation International News that ADSB system is at risk, and it's easy to insert a fake aircraft. The report cites a hacker and security. That doesn't actually happen. Hacker Nick Forrester demonstrated this by spoofing a fake aircraft into a simulated busy airspace in San Francisco using the open source flight gear flight simulator program. So it looks like it's been simulated, but even Bing contradicts itself when I read into the details and says that no, it looks like, at least as far as I've seen, or as far as Bing AI is reporting, as much credit as you'll give that, there isn't a case I can find directly of somebody maliciously spoofing like a actual airplane.
But I think it's important to mention, like, just because it didn't happen in the past doesn't mean it can't happen in the future. And given that like the FAA is considering ADS-B as a more modern type of system, it's alerting to me that it's unencrypted.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And this is something that if people are demonstrating this and showing off its capability, but it's just too scary for most people to try doing it. If somebody were to want to do this offensively, if they were to want to cause a lot of confusion, then the fact that it hasn't really been done before actually kind of makes it more dangerous, because I don't think that people take the threat maybe as seriously as they should. Um, All right, so that's a lot of stuff. So that's going to be on the 30th, I believe, at Null Space Labs in Los Angeles. That event has not been posted yet, but it will be posted by the end of the day. So if you are in the Los Angeles area and you want to check that out and also support a great hackerspace, you can check that out on the Null Space Labs meetup page, as well as the Cyber Weapons Lab LA meetup page. And of course, Angelina, I'm sure you will be putting that out on your social media as well.
Yeah.
Speaking of, how's your website? Is it up again? Should we refer people to it?
Yeah, so I think it was like the browser I was using, or because like directly after on Discord, people were telling me it was working. So
All right, you want to put it up so we can direct people there if they want to check out one of your classes?
yeah, sure. So the website I was trying to show last time was the Aerospace cybersecurity tools website. But if anybody wants to, here, I'll show it off just because I couldn't get to show it off the last stream. It's a little bit different from the classes, but it's still a cool website, and I like seeing people contribute to it. Yeah, so it's essentially, if you're interested in aerospace hacking, I noticed that there wasn't a lot of resources for tools out there, and it was really hard whenever I was doing research to find a tool that was aerospace cybersecurity related. I had to like spend hours like sifting through GitHub repositories to find the correct tool for me. So I just wanted to make that process a little bit easier for researchers and hackers alike. So you can see here, we have a wide variety of different aerospace related systems you can select from, and it's essentially just an open source repository of resources you can use to conduct aerospace cybersecurity research.
That's fantastic. All right, cool. I know a lot of people after going to your classes, they get really inspired. They want to maybe take the next step, try out a new tool, or like take something that they've worked on in the workshop a little further maybe. So seems like a great way for people to stay connected to those resources as you find and add them. And yeah, overall, super, super cool. All right, so we have a little bit of time now at the end, maybe like 10 minutes or so to go through questions. And I do have a bunch of them, or at least a bunch of comments that are on the Security Forward YouTube channel. But of course, if you are in the chat and you are asking questions like Leo, for example, who asks, what is the URL for that site? Then we will, of course, answer your questions with priority because you're here with us live, and you know, you deserve it. So, Angelina, what was the URL for that website?
Yeah, so let me share it with you guys. It's my hacker alias .space. So I have another website, g4lxy.space, which has like my hacking related stuff on it. So it's just a subdomain of that. So it's tools.g4lxy.space.
I think I just put it on the chat. Does that look right?
Yeah,
I'm not sure if
that's
you can
correct.
see the chat. Okay,
Yeah.
cool. I was listening. All right, awesome. So if you want to check that out, you can find more awesome aerospace hacking tools there. And if you are somebody that's following along with Angelina's workshop and trying to collect them all, there's now a trilogy. So you have a trilogy of aerospace cybersecurity workshops to attend: the drone hacking, the satellite hacking, and now the airplane hacking class, which is going to be debuting in Los Angeles on the 30th. And then, of course, the drone hacking workshop that's going to be online on the 23rd. All right, so let's go ahead, and I'm going to switch over to some of these questions that we got. Angelina, a couple of these are even for you. Okay, I don't know. So this is just asserting that Linux Mint is a little bit more robust against using evil limiter. That's great. I'm going to skip over these ones, and instead, I'm going to go to the one that's just a thank you to you. Thank you for the satellite source. Aw, yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah, of course.
Um, Third time, I just missed the live stream. I don't see you here, Fixit42 either. So I fear that there may be a fourth time for you. I'm so sorry. Um, Bug bounties are unpaid pen tests. Don't do it. How do you feel about that?
Um, I feel like, well, I have heard of stories where people go on bug bounty sites and make millions of dollars. So I don't think they are unpaid. There's lots of resources out there where you can get paid for doing a bunch of bug bounties. I don't know. It's just what you're interested in. If you're just being a pen tester and you want to work full time, that's fine. But if you're looking for a great side source of income and if you have the skill set to do it, I think bug bounties are great.
Yeah, I would say like bug bounties are great for practice, but sometimes it is very frustrating when people will submit something and they'll be told it's a duplicate or somebody else has already submitted it and then it doesn't even get fixed. Like
Yeah.
that's definitely a frustrating feeling. So I understand that a lot of people do get frustrated with bug bounties, but I still think that they're useful, just maybe not as a primary source of income. This video is so outdated now. Yeah, because it's like a year old. The return, I've been wondering where you guys were, but you've been live streaming the whole time. We sure have been. Yeah, a lot of people have ended up finding me and Killian on that stream and wondering what happened to Nullbyte and Hack5. Yeah, we've been here the whole time. Welcome. Good to see you. So this was a story, or rather, this was a part of the live stream where we were talking about these weird DNA tests that got really, really cheap and were being given out as like prizes at the RSA conference, where people were given a DNA test and then like mailed back a piece of paper that was just basically a meme. But yeah, like DNA is big business now. And the fact that like law enforcement and other agencies are able to reach out to private companies to reach into genetic records they might not otherwise have permission to search through is really interesting, because these companies are positioning themselves as having access to all this research data, some of it anonymized, but in some cases it's pretty easy to de-anonymize it, and it's kind of how it's being sold. So this was a really
Yeah,
interesting stream. Oh, sorry, go on.
yeah, I just wanted to add on to that. Yeah, it's crazy how like biometric indicators such as DNA are being used now to store information about you. So it's like another channel you have to be aware of, not just like your digital information, but also now your biometric identifiers, one of them being your DNA. It's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, especially when it also involves like your family members. It turns out that, you know, like police can find you through DNA analysis, or anybody can, if your, you know, siblings or like a parent or something has also gone through the process of putting their DNA in these databases. So it's really invasive and interesting how these databases are quietly being used more and more, especially on the private side. All right. First time listening, learn some new things. Thank God Almighty, and you for expanding my horizons. Okay, that's wonderful. In fact, I'm going to take the suggested response, and yes, wonderful. Thank you very much. All right, so the rest of these seem mostly not like questions, mostly just nice things. So thank you everyone for that. So I think we are pretty much we're pretty much good for today. Thank you to everybody who asked questions. Thank you to Angelina also for coming on and talking to us a little bit more about aerospace cybersecurity. I know now that you have the trilogy complete, where are you going to go from here? Are you going to start like doing submarines, or are you going to expand into further spacecraft and just get further and further away from Earth?
Yeah, I'm thinking of doing more courses around aerospace cybersecurity, so I have a few coming up. Um, is it okay, Kody, if I can show them off?
Yeah, of course.
All right. So one course I'm going to be doing is an in-person course. I will be hosting for a company called SkySafe. So a few months ago, I got in contact with Sarah Francis, who is the director of reverse engineering at SkySafe, which is a UAS forensics company. And I think next week, either on Tuesday or Wednesday, they want me to make an in-person lecture about one of the forensics tools I made for drones a while back called Drone Extract. So I'll be in San Diego on either Tuesday or Wednesday talking a little bit about the tool and how you can use it. If you want to sign up for that course, I believe SkySafe is still giving out tickets and seats. They go over a lot about digital forensics in relation to drones, and they even give you a drone I think you can keep afterwards. And you can run a whole bunch of forensic scenarios on drones, and they have like a whole warehouse full of different kinds of drones. So you'll be getting exposure to lots of different manufacturers and the protocols they have in place. Yeah, so that's one of the workshops, or I guess events I'll be doing that's aerospace related. And then the second one I'm doing is for another company called Pentest Magazine. So a few months back ago, I decided to collaborate with Pentest to create a satellite hacking course with them. And it's going to be launched, I think, on the 18th. So there's still some time to sign up for seats. On the 30th, I will be doing a live webinar with Timothy Hoffman, where we'll be going over some of the questions people might have about the course. So yeah, a lot of exciting things coming up within the next few weeks that are aerospace cybersecurity related.
That's so cool. All right. So if you're a nerd who enjoys hacking things that flies, then all of these sound, especially the one where you get the free drone, sounds super cool. So be sure to follow Angelina on social media, where you can find more information about her upcoming classes, both in person and online. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing the online one on the 23rd, and then the in-person one at Null Space Labs on the 30th. All right, so I think that is just about, oh, look, we have a question. What is your favorite operating system as a daily driver?
I'm all over the place. So like the laptop I have right now is a MacBook Pro. So Mac OS, I also have a PC that runs Windows, but I also have I typically run a virtual machine on it that's either running like Ubuntu or Kali. So I'm kind of all over the place. How about you, Kody?
I am at the point where I'm mostly sticking with Mac OS, and then yeah, like Ubuntu. Like I still use Kali sometimes in like a specialized fashion, like if I'm just too lazy to install something in Ubuntu, but like anything that runs in Kali can run in Ubuntu, at least as far as I know. So everything I've needed to do, I've been able to do in like a friendly way that doesn't involve a bunch of pain as running. There's as I see it, like there's no need to drive like an armored personnel carrier to the grocery store when it comes to like your daily driver. Like, if you're going to be like checking your emails and stuff most of the time, then having like a super lockdown operating system is just like very actually annoying. What is Black Ubuntu? I heard of it, but never looked into it. I don't know. I haven't. I just heard of it now. I haven't even had time to look into it. So you're already ahead of me on that one. But all right. So last thing I'm going to shout out this week. If you want to support the stream, you can go to varonis.com/Kody. That's Kody. And this week we are going to be referring to our September 20th blockbuster breaches presentation, where we basically go through all the biggest breaches in the 21st century. Just make sure everyone is aware of all the notable breaches that people kind of refer back to and think of when they start planning cybersecurity. Yeah, so that's about it. You can check this out. Of course, also people run us to check to see how many people from the stream are clicking on this link. So if you want to support us, it doesn't cost you anything. Just go ahead and go to varonis.com/Kody. That's Kody, and they will know you care. All right, so that's all we have this week. Angelina, thank you for being on the stream with us again. And hopefully we will see some of you at the upcoming classes that Angelina is going to be doing on aerospace hacking. All right, we'll see you all next week. Goodbye, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.